gentlemen, welcome to the Part-Time Allies Part-Time Podcast. Today, I'm going to be your host, Josh, and joining me on the couch, as always, we have AJ.
I'm back, baby.
We have Ryan.
I'm the lead singer of Vagrant Dan and the Modal Notes.
What?
There we go, everyone.
And derailed already.
And Jordan sadly cannot join us today, but in his place, we do have a special guest, and that is good friend of the show and good friend of myself, Phil.
Hey guys,
How are you?
Phil-
this is what free time feels like.
Ooh. Phil is extremely handsome. He's in a full suit right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Just
Big, thick locks of hair combed back.
think Matthew McConaughey.
With less whistle.
What?
Not even close.
I don't even know.
I know.
Do you know what I
Horrible.
mean?
I'm so sorry.
No.
Okay.
Less whistle?
If you must know, Vagrant Dan, you remember Vagrant Dan and the Modal Notes?
Sure don't.
The name of the Cantina band from Star
Cantina
Wars.
band.
That's the actual name of their band.
Actually, you're
Yeah.
right. Yes, I do. I did recall that.
You should hear their instruments.
Yeah,
you
do
should
you remember
bring
some
that
of
up.
them, Ryan?
I know there was like Clue Guitar on the Omnibox.
Yes.
There was the was it the flugelhorn? No,
Yeah, I think
That sounds pretty close.
Yeah,
something like that. That it was so
straight
funny.
out of Rick and Morty.
Omnibox was awesome.
Everybody has a plumbus.
I put mine at home. I forgot it.
I mean, everyone knows how they work, so it doesn't matter.
Well, you remembered your headphones at least, so
Yeah, got
hey,
those.
You're up there, man. Well, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
As is customary now for our guests on the show, I had to warn Phil about the murder shack on the way here.
Yes, it is. I was just talking to Josh about this very thing. When you're talking and doing podcasts, the best part about it is you have no clue, like, about the atmosphere that people are actually talking in.
Yeah, exactly. Like you never maybe we could do a little brief descriptor of this room.
It's
like
dark in here, guys.
The lights haven't been on for 40 years.
it's decently well lit, and there's like
Yeah.
you guys are sitting on like a pretty nice leather couch.
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
is
actually,
When we came up here and I saw this couch, I'm like, what the heck? This is a super nice couch and just like the middle of this room.
Yeah.
And then we reclined and did the podcast.
That's right.
Yeah.
And like the area that this building is in is this weird like industrial park. Like we're basically in a wood mill. Like they carve wood outside of this building, and
Yeah.
yet inside is like
Yeah, so come visit us.
not what you expect.
And
So,
then there's one of my favorite guitars of all time, a BC Rich Warlock hanging on the wall.
yeah,
Ooh.
you can thank Faza for that.
Sasha.
So now we've pretty much blown everybody's idea of what
Yeah.
the studio that was
That's
supposed
right,
to be
yeah.
completely clean, white.
Yeah, it's really
and-
clean.
It's very clean.
Everybody's got their
There's definitely not alcohol bottles sitting everywhere in here.
The Omnibox is on the side there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, Vagrant Dan comes and records here.
that's right.
All the big guys.
Oh gosh, but yeah, great to have you. Part of our show is we kind of start off the show with talking about what we've been up to this week. So would anyone like to start us off?
No,
Fine. How about you?
oh,
Ryan. you
Oh,
wanna
I
start
was
us off?
gonna start us off.
Okay, cool.
I've been playing some games. I've actually been playing a wide variety of games and putting a little bit of time into each of them. I've played some Trials Fusion. I
saw you buy that.
Yeah. I played Trials Evolution on 360, I think, and then I got this one on PS4, and it's same old, but it's still really fun and
Trials
frustrating.
is
at
like the
times.
dirt biking game where
Yeah.
you have to tilt. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
That game's cool.
Yeah.
It seems like it's very skill intensive, but it has really tight controls. Like you can pretty well do exactly what you want to do in the air.
Yeah.
Every time I see that game, it reminds me of Excite Bike 64. I don't know why.
It's the evolution of Excite Bike.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. But yeah, I've still I've been playing a bit more Prey. Still haven't gotten too far in that, but man, that game is just straight up eerie.
Oh yeah.
You're kind of in this area just all by yourself with like these weird phantom mimic things, and you basically don't really have much for weapons, really.
Trying to dance around
shoot.
spoilers as much as I can. Have you gotten a helmet yet?
I don't think I have, actually.
Okay.
Pray.
I was a different podcast I was listening to was talking about some of the progression that happens in that game, and there's like a lot of stuff that happens after the character requires a helmet that like things start to get real weird. So
wow.
I'm excited to hear what happens after you get that.
Things have been weird already, so I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah.
I've also been playing. Last night specifically, I played a couple more hours of Dark Souls. Still suck.
So do you remember where you are now?
I beat I beat Carpe Diem.
The Capra Demon.
that one.
Okay, that's arguably one of the harder boss fights of the beginning of the game.
I had help.
Oh, you summoned for it?
I had AJ.
Oh, nice.
I summoned at least like 10 times, and it slaughtered me every single time. The worst part is because you have to go in first before everybody else,
Yeah.
and the thing runs at you immediately.
Well,
and just like,
the dogs.
It's not so much just that. It's the two dogs. Like,
Yeah.
you try and run up the stairs, and the dog's like in your way, like attacking you, and you get stunned by its attack, and then the guy just comes and one-shots you. It's like, sweet, okay. Great.
Interesting fact about the Capra Demon fight is, so the Capra Demon fight, Dark Souls, he's this goat-headed demon with two swords, and when you come into the boss fight room, there's also two dogs that rush you. The
room is tiny.
The room is very tiny, and it has kind of like an L-shaped stairwell going up the back. The first time you enter that room, though, on a new game, the dogs will spawn in a different spot than they do every other time you enter it. And it's easier to get away from the dogs on the very first attempt. So it actually makes it way harder if you lose the first time, because where the dogs spawn, they'll get to you like, half a second faster, but like too fast for you to roll out of the way anymore. So it's one of those like weird programming things where like it's not the same fight every time.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
And the last thing, I was actually playing a bit more of it today, is I'm still playing Battlefield 1. That game is so great. Like,
I do love a good FPS every now and again.
yeah, and
Destiny 2.
like I love old war games too.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited for Destiny 2. So pumped.
Sorry.
But yeah, Battlefield 1 was designed so well. Just you feel like you're in World War 1. And it like today I was playing, I'm like, you know what? I always see teammates and stuff playing it as the scout class. Like the scout class has the snipers, and usually it's people just like kind of sitting in the back camping and doing that kind of thing. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do this for once. And I got on top of a Zeppelin and I was just sniping people from the top of it, and it was the most satisfying thing ever.
There's something about that, games in general, especially as a 3D modeler. Like, when I sit down and I start playing one of those games, sometimes I find myself just getting lost in looking at all the small details.
Yeah.
And when I saw the first kind of trailer for the actual gameplay, oh man, I was just like, oh wow, that's real good. That's way better than I could ever do. That's for sure.
Well, it's just all the little things that happen too, right? Like, the Zeppelin I was on was about to blow up, so I jumped off of it to parachute away. Mm-hmm. And like the Zeppelin still had some health like when I landed, but I was kind of on this long elevated walkway, and I'm running across, and all of a sudden just something falls and I die. I'm like, what the heck? Like, what'd I die from? And it was like, killed in action. And I respawn and I run over there, and the Zeppelin had blown up, and the fallen metal from it had come and fallen on that entire walkway.
That's pretty cool.
And it crushed me. I'm like, wow.
I do love those situations where you get like fell in action, and
Yeah.
you just like, I was standing. Like, how did I? What?
And then you go back to that building and there's nothing left. It's like, oh, that's what happened.
Yep.
Died of a cold.
That'll do it.
If this was real World War I game, it's like, you died of trench foot.
7 years later.
Nah, man, people died of trench foot in the
pretty
trenches.
soon after.
Yeah.
Dude, that'd
Yeah.
be absolutely hilarious.
I want to play that game again.
It's like, you are diseased. You have to cure yourself before you can keep fighting people.
It's like Oregon Trail. Back, like, you've died of dysentery.
Go to the
Alrighty.
doctor.
Oh,
that
man.
would
My
be
level
it.
20 character is now gone.
That's the DLC I'm going to be waiting for Battlefield 1 is the
The
trench.
Oregon Trail DLC.
No, the trench foot DLC.
I'd pay for both of those.
Oh, no.
Oh man.
Anyway, moving on from that.
Yeah. Phil, before we'll move on to you next, what you've been up to, but you kind of alluded to it. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, what I do is I do 3D models. Sometimes I make 3D models for TV shows, but I also tend to get a lot of 3D models, and from there, I am actually taking these 3D models and I am creating life-size scale models from foam or wood or whatever a TV show or movie needs. And this is kind of what I've been doing for the past 10 years, and I love what I do, but I could do without the stress of it. That is for certain.
Well, maybe we'll wrap back around to that
Yeah.
in a few minutes here. But what have you been playing? These last
okay.
maybe not last week for you since you've never been on the show before. But
Last 17 years.
what's Phil's
Where to begin?
what's Phil's game or even media repertoire? What are you into these
Well,
days?
in 1993, Phil picked up his very first game system.
Actually, no. My very first game system was definitely a Nintendo, and
Hey.
I probably picked that up. Probably 91. No, yeah, 91. Probably around then. And if that's accurate, I believe. And the first game I ever played was Super Mario.
Hey.
And that's pretty much where a lot of people tend to get their origins from. But I was hooked. That situation is what drove me to become a 3D modeler and someone who is actually really deep into games and trying to create them and stuff like that, and also play them and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think probably your story, my story, and AJ's story, I think would probably spawn from that of like we were into computers and games as kids, and then that kind of influenced our professional leanings, I suppose. And maybe Ryan too one day.
One day, Ryan, join us.
I'm looking into it.
Join us and have no life.
No, we have lives. You,
Right. Oh, wait.
I think someone in the room, Phil,
More accomplished than most of us.
from the life perspective, you have a kid.
Yes, I do.
And a
That's
wife.
Right. I am level 2 in life standards. Yep, a wife and kids, and I love them both, and they love seeing me when they get to.
Never.
Well, busy man.
busy man, that's for sure. But
right
so
on.
my game right now that I'm playing is a new game that actually just came up. Oh man, I was waiting for this game, and I am one of those city building kind of guys right now, and I love city building. So it's called Kingdoms and Castles, and this game came out, I think, June, and they had advertised, I believe, June 15th, and when the 15th came, it didn't come out, and I was like, oh no. But when it finally came out, I've hammered on that game. At least I think I bought it like 2 weeks ago, and I've already got probably about 20 hours on it already.
Nice.
And
Wow.
that's with what little time I have after I put the kid to sleep. I'm like, I love you, honey. Mwah. And then I'm playing away. But that one's my game right now. The other one that I play is also one called, what is it? Space Junker Leagues or something like that.
Oh.
Huh.
Do
you recognize that one?
Yeah.
It's like
Familiar.
you build your spaceship kind of like in Space Engineers, and then from there you go into these arena battles, and it's actually a lot of fun because each block can be separated from the ship. So as you're blowing people up, if you take out someone, like all their engines, they can't move. So sometimes it's even better just to take out your enemies so that way they can't move, and then you just let them sit there for the entire arena match because they can't do diddly jack.
It's awesome.
That sounds great.
It's really fun. I've been having a lot of fun with it. But games that I've played in the past that I'd have to bring up would definitely be PlanetSide 2, Dota 2, Dota the original. Command and Conquer is where I started my RTS.
You were a Souls guy too.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I love Dark Souls. I went through all the Souls games. I haven't completed 3 because I just haven't had the time. and I can't even remember where I ended off. So
Well,
that's
and
not
the-
a good thing.
The newest DLC just released like a month ago.
Isn't
so
that the last DLC as well?
the last DLC for Dark
Man,
Souls
that's
ever.
So sad.
The
No.
last boss fight is real good. It's a good send off.
Oh yeah,
For the
okay.
DLC, yeah.
Okay, good.
It's
It's-
every boss in the game.
No, that's actually spoilers for Dark Souls 3. The last boss of Dark Souls 3 canon. Have you beaten Dark Souls 3?
Nope,
oh,
don't
I'm
say
not going to
anything.
say anything then. Nope, never mind.
Oh, neither have I. So
Okay,
don't say
well, never mind.
anything. But yeah,
That's a
it's-
conversation we got to have when you beat it because
Oh.
that boss is cool.
Yeah, let's talk
We'll
about
have
it.
it
I've beat
soon.
Dark Souls 3.
Blindfolded.
Get on that horse, Ryan.
After 10 controllers that I have broken, I have finally defeated Dark Souls 3.
Oh, man.
Oh man, yeah, it's I'm all over the place when it comes down to games. And as far as like media, okay. The one thing I can't seem to get myself into is TV shows. I don't know why, but I cannot do a series. I will start one, get through season 1. I have watched the season 1 of every TV show because everybody tells me to watch it, and I watch it, and I think it's amazing. And then I just forget about it, and I just go on to the next thing.
Oh no.
But so, are you not a Game of Throneser?
I am not a Game of Thrones. I watched the first season. This is one of those things.
Oh, no.
Watched the first season. Was like, oh my word, what's going to happen with the wall? These things. This is awesome. Completely forgot about it.
Oh no.
I know. It's saddening to hear,
Wow.
but it's truth.
Oh, Phil.
But I will say this. I have watched over 400 episodes of One Piece.
Okay.
Wow, the one show to get into.
The
One
one
Piece.
show.
These are the things that matter.
Well, the thing about One Piece is like
They're at like 798 episodes right
and like
now.
plot wise, they've alluded to this. What's it called? The One Piece.
Yeah.
The thing that they're trying to find.
From day one.
Nobody still knows what the heck this thing is.
Really?
Yep.
I,
Like 700 episodes.
I heard a story that the guy who makes it, like he just loves making this show.
I wouldn't doubt, because like the amount of like detail there is in this show, it's crazy. Like you'll have a character that was in like season 3 pop up in season 7, and you're just like, oh yeah, they went through this amazing adventure. Oh, they're doing it again.
Well, and apparently he said, at I guess a new season just started at the end of the last season or whatever. He was like, yeah, like, man, I love making the show, and it's going to be sad to see it go eventually because, you know, right now I feel like we're maybe 72% through it. And it's like, you're at 790 episodes.
I know. And I think, honestly, this is the, for me, it was like that epitome of this guy's not going to let the story like get cut off too early. He's just going to go where he feels like it's going to go. And that's I really love that too. And almost every season when they go to this new island and this new trouble comes up, sometimes it's very political even. Like you're sitting here and they're talking about like slavery of this one place, and the pirates, who technically should be the villains, are standing up for the slaves, and they're tackling like high society, and you're just like, what the heck? And at moments you're just like, this is really deep, and then at moments you're like, yeah, this is all fanfare.
One Piece has two things that I want to talk about quick. The first one is, isn't it one of the animes that's the most guilty for just like filler episodes that have nothing to do with the plot?
Oh my word, yes. Oh, I have watched many an episode going, I have to wait another week. It's not worse than Dragon Ball Z.
Okay.
But it still gets pretty
Oh,
tough there.
Speaking of filler episodes, did you watch the new My Hero episode this morning?
Yeah, it's actually it's not in the manga at all, this new episode.
No,
It's
but
anime specific.
I forgot to watch it.
Hero Academia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love that one too.
You're
Oh,
watching that?
so
Yeah,
good.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it's good.
But have you
watched
only
it.
seen one season of it?
Nope, I've seen both.
Oh,
I
okay,
went
here
through
we go.
that-
Here we go.
The
Here we go.
tournament arc, that was so fun.
So
Yeah.
did you watch this morning's episode?
I didn't. I haven't
I haven't
watched it
either.
yet.
So this morning's episode, no spoilers, like they talked about it at the end of the last episode, but it's a non-manga arc. So they're doing one like filler episode that wasn't in the manga, anime only, just to show like, because like all the characters split up for a little while, and so it's what all the other characters were up to, just like a
Oh, okay.
But it was actually really good.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Like, I'm not one. If I see a filler episode, I'm like, come on. I'm waiting for the plot to proceed. Get on with it.
Yeah.
And then this episode happened. I'm like, oh, well, I'm so excited. It's one of my favorite animes. I was like, this was a great episode.
Like, especially, I'm not a huge fan of the character who they centered on in this episode until after this episode. Frumpy. She's so awesome.
I know.
Oh man.
I'm excited now.
And then like not spoiling anything, but the captain is like, "Arigato," and it's like, would you stop doing
You're not
that?
cute.
You're not cute. And then Froppy says, "He's so cute."
I was actually. Did you notice that it's like a sub theme of all of the characters with their mentors? It's like, what's the girl who Zero Gravity girl?
Uraraka.
Whenever she's sparring with her guy with her mentor, she's always like, "This guy is so like." I can't remember what she says. She doesn't say cute, but she says something along those lines of like he just like beats the crap out of her and takes the knife from her hand, and she's like, "That was awesome."
But because his name's like Machine Gun Head,
Something like that. Yeah.
but he's just like she did something in a couple episodes ago, and he's like, "Oh, that was such a cute expression you just did," and it's like, your name Machine Gun Head. You think he'd be like, "Old soldiers never die," like that kind of
That's
thing.
the beautiful thing about the Japanese anime.
Yeah.
You'll never get the same voice twice.
Yeah. But speaking of filler episodes, I'm going through. So my favorite anime of all time is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh no!
And I'm going through part 4, which is my favorite season of the show again. And I forgot that there were filler episodes in that show, but there are. And this last episode, this guy, so these characters, do you know the background of the show, Phil?
Not really.
So the first 2 seasons are a little weird, but the third and fourth season are the main kind of.
Actually, I have heard you guys talk about this.
Oh
on
yeah,
the
we've
show
talked about it
already.
before.
Yes, yeah.
So the characters have these ability called stands, and they're like physical manifestations of their personalities, pretty much. So this kid gets a stand in this filler episode, and his whole stand revolves around playing rock paper scissors to take other people's abilities.
Oh my word!
Yeah, it's crazy.
That instantly reminds me of Gone from
Hunter x Hunter.
Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah.
That was another amazing one.
Oh, it's so good. But the thing I wanted to say about One Piece, I haven't watched. I've watched like 2 episodes, and only because I heard about a character named Law, and he has the coolest ability
Yes, he does.
of like any anime character I've ever seen.
It's almost like OP.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, he's very like they play it so well. The way he's at 1 minute he's like, boom, I've got your heart in my hand. And then all of a sudden, the next moment, he's like, oh, I'm lying on the ground and I've been defeated. And you're like, how did that happen?
The episode that I remember watching was he has this bubble that goes around him, and all of these like I can't remember what they're called, not colonials, but like the what are they called? Is it colonials?
Yeah, I think it was something, yeah.
Like the good, like quote good guys, right? All walk into his bubble, and he like tears them apart and like starts sticking their limbs on barrels and stuff.
The Marines.
The Marines, that's
yes.
what it is.
Yeah.
Marines. He like tears them apart,
And they're all
then
still
starts
alive,
like
just
making
like,
all these
what
like
the
weird people constructions.
Yeah,
that's
that
cool.
that show also has moments where you just like, that's messed up.
Yeah.
Like that's just wrong.
Yeah.
But it's just such a big anime that you can almost hit like everything with it. So
Yeah.
Very cool.
Quickly moving along. What
Yeah.
have you and AJ been playing?
So I played Dota 2 for the first time
No.
in a year yesterday.
don't do it, Josh, but I'll join you.
After I got out of it, just to see how it was. Because the game's changed quite a bit. I felt it's very polished now. Like the UI is very well done now. I remember back in the day, AJ, you'll remember this too. I think as you showed me, was when you would go in those config files to change the keybinds. You'd have like shut the game down and open this like file and change minimap size and stuff. That's all done in the client now,
Oh wow.
which is
Okay.
like just
Oh,
a
wow.
huge improvement. Or like you'd have to put in console commands every time the game started. You don't have to do that anymore for some stuff, which
Honestly,
is
for the most of the part, I would end up actually using another program to create my keybinds.
Yeah.
So that way I could use them in the game.
So now it's actually in a settings menu. Like, wow, who would have thought that was intuitive, right?
Isn't that standard these days? No.
But no, it was good. And the reason I wanted to check it out is because the Dota 2 International was this week. It ended about 5 minutes before I drove over here. Team Liquid took 3-0 against Newbie, and it's the first TI ever where the final was a 3-0.
I know those teams.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
Wow.
Except Liquid is totally not. Like, Liquid is half of Team Secret from when you would
Don't
have...
know who that is.
Okay. Well, anyways, they are like they're an American team, and all of their players are like from all different parts of Europe. So like I don't understand why you're an American team, but sure.
No?
But no, that was really exciting. That was a great week of Dota, and I re-listened to the whole episodes that we do for the edit, and also just while I'm driving. And I noticed I really trashed on Just Cause 3 last episode.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So I thought I'm gonna reinstall it and like give it another fair shake. it took me about another hour, and I was like, yeah, no, this game's garbage.
Really? Oh,
I
no.
really just can't deal with this.
I've seen some funny playthroughs on that actually.
It looks like you can do some cool stuff, but the controls, it's like you're holding handfuls of anchovies. Like you just can't
that's too bad.
do what you want to do.
Oh no.
Yeah, I just recently watched this video of this guy. Like, I didn't know what he was doing, but he like walked up to a cow
Yes.
and he put like these weird spikes in the cow's butt, and I was like, what is going on? And he walked away and like flipped out this device and hit something, and these jets start like just shooting exhaust from the back of the things he put in the cow, and I'm like, wait, what? And the
Those
cow
are
just
my favorite
launches
videos.
and flies away.
So you have like C4 that you can put on stuff,
Yeah.
and then when you upgrade the C4, it becomes rockets for some reason. So you're just putting rockets on things, and you can, yeah.
I've seen like people launch like cars, vehicles, whatever comes close. They're just like click, click, poof, and then it goes flying. I don't know
Yeah.
why I find it funny.
Just 'cause.
It is.
Just
And
cause.
Just
and that's why I
cause.
wanted to get into it, but no, that game's just bad.
Well, and apparently, one of the things someone does a lot of the time, like I guess they get in a car and like you can shoot like anchor spikes
Yep.
onto buildings or something, and they'll like, or maybe it was you telling
was me telling you about
Okay,
this,
it was
yeah.
you telling me about this.
You can. So what I would do, I would put tethers on the side of cars and then put them onto the like, buildings beside them, and then you can hit a retract button and it'll suspend the car in the air like Spider-Man. It was fun.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if that was you because I recently was listening to some other podcasts and they were talking about Just Cause 3, so I thought it was in that, but no, I guess it was you.
It was last week. But the big game I've been playing this week is Path of Exile. If you guys have heard of that,
Oh yes, good game.
Oh yeah, actually
good
free to
game.
play, right?
free to play. It's kind of like Diablo.
What Diablo 3
yes.
should have been. So
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I
See,
guess.
I like Diablo. Well,
I do like Diablo 3 as well.
Diablo 3, yeah. I remember having fun when I was playing it. But yeah, it's a very cool game actually. So it has 6 classes that you can choose from. It's like witch, barbarian, whatever, right?
Yep.
And so in the Diablo games, each of those classes have a skill tree, right?
Yeah.
But in this game, there's only one skill tree. Your class determines where you start on it.
Yeah.
So like theoretically, you can put points in and get down to like I started as a witch, but you could like get your points down to like the barbarian skill tree stuff if you wanted to. Like
that's
it wouldn't
really
make
neat.
sense, but you can. So
Yes,
I've-
I remember hearing a lot about this.
I've made like a summoner lightning casting build. It's pretty fun.
How high of a level is your character?
Level 30. I'm like halfway through Act 3, and I think there's like 10 or 15 acts in the game or
Oh,
something.
man.
So
What's level
I don't
cap
remember.
on that?
70
Okay.
maybe. I don't know, but it's a lot of fun and free to play.
Yeah.
The only thing you have to pay for is skins. So and inventory space. Which once I realized like that gear really isn't worth a whole lot, there's not really a point in picking up 90% of the gear that drops,
Okay.
so it ends up being not too big of a problem. But
all right.
yeah, so that's been fun. That's been my week. AJ, what about you?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's been a while since I've been on the podcast.
Yeah,
a
it
little
has.
bit, just a little bit. So I don't remember if I told you I beat a couple games. I've been trying to beat games. I'm not sure if I told you guys if I beat SteamWorld Heist, which is like the side-scrolling strategy game with robots
That's the one where you can bounce bullets.
off walls. That's
Yeah,
side-scrolling.
that game's
It's-
cool.
It's 2D side-scrolling. Like
Yeah.
you have like a party and you go in your little spaceships and you raid their spaceships. And it's like a turn-based. It's like XCOM Light.
You're like steampunk robot space pirates, and it's a side scroller.
Yeah, it's
It's
super
really cool.
fun. I beat that game after like picking it up like a year ago, I think. Yeah,
on
and then
PC or 3DS.
no, PC.
Okay, PC.
So, is that on 3DS?
That's where I was playing it. Yeah. 3DS.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I just beat it after picking it up last year, and I like beat the whole game. It took like 15 hours. It wasn't very long. Super fun game. And then I've been playing a little bit of Diablo 3 with my buddy, and we're like level 55 now. Diablo 3 again. It felt like just playing it for some reason.
Yeah.
And then I also felt like I played Dark Souls again, and I picked up
Good
Dark
choice.
Souls 1 and beat the whole thing, soloed every single boss
Nice.
except Orange Sea and Smo.
That's a rough one.
That's the only boss I do not solo because I
That's
just couldn't
the
do it. I
brothers,
tried
right?
to,
Yeah.
and I was
Yeah.
like, no, that's not gonna work.
Yeah, that boss
So-
fight is rough.
Yeah, because what happens is I get Dark Souls games and then I get the DLC, but I never play the DLC because it always like comes out after
Yeah.
I buy it. And so what I never when I picked up the DLC for a Dark Souls. I just never ended up doing it.
Wait, so you never played the Dark Souls 1 DLC until
No.
now?
Until now.
Oh my goodness, AJ.
So I did all of it.
So you never experienced Artorias.
No, I did. He's a
And
cool
who
guy.
he
He's
actually
cool.
is.
I beat the crap out of him.
Artorias is like, just like lore-wise and design-wise, he's got to be one of my favorite
He
bosses.
is really cool, especially with the Sif stuff. And
Yeah, well, and he's based off of Guts from
Really?
from Berserk. Yeah,
Really?
because like you
Okay,
know
cool.
how his arm is broken in that
Yep.
fight. It's like just how
That's
Guts
really
is like
cool.
missing his arm. Yeah,
Isn't that exactly what the first Dark Souls was really based
Yep.
around?
yeah.
yep, really huge inspiration.
A
from
lot of
Berserk.
stuff comes from Berserk.
There's a lot of stuff that taken from Berserk.
Because I didn't get it. That's one of the few things that I didn't get into was the Berserk universe, and especially with the manga and whatnot.
There's a new anime right now. It's so
Sucks.
bad.
Is that the
terrible.
one that's the CGI?
Yeah.
anime?
Yeah,
Oh,
they ruined
I
it.
hate that stuff so much.
Like instead of animating character walking animations, they just slide sometimes. Like
It's really bad.
it's terrible.
It's really,
oh man,
really bad.
like I gotta admit, out of all the anime out there, whenever I see that CG stuff, I instantly have like this bad vibe, and I've only been wrong once, and that is a Netflix.
Knights of Sidonia.
No, it was just a movie. I can't. It was called like Bash or.
Oh gosh.
It was-
yeah.
It's just one word like bang or something like that. And at first, I was bored. I was really bored, and I ended up watching this, and I couldn't believe how the animation was still not that good, but the story, I was so into that story. I was like, wow, that was really cool. It was just about this never-ending city that was constantly being built by these machines, and the human race has somehow, through a virus, has been kicked out of the city. All of the human race. And now whenever the computer sees the humans, it thinks it's an intruder and kills the human being. And so now they're trying to survive in a city that's just constantly building around them. It was
It's
really
interesting.
neat. It was
That
really,
was
really
very
neat.
interesting.
You see a lot of CG in anime, but like that's like classically done anime, but with CG supplemented. That does a really good job. Like My Hero does a lot of it. You'll see it a lot in backgrounds and things like that.
Yeah, there's a few anime that I just despise it.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. It's a workaround from just like drawing every single character
Yeah.
in the background.
Yeah.
But if they do it well, it works because you don't really notice.
Mhm.
And then the ones that I can't remember what anime it was. It was like some lovey-dovey anime. But like in the background, there's like just CG, and it's like really bad. You're like, stop doing this.
Yeah.
Ugh. But anyway, yeah, I beat Dark Souls again. Did all the DLC, sold everything except Ornstein Smough, and now I'm playing Dark Souls 2, and I'm about 40%.
Scholar
Way through.
edition or
Yeah.
the regular one?
Well, it's regular edition, but it's like all the DLC, so I'm not sure if that
Oh
changes
yeah.
anything.
No, Scholar is a re-release where all of the item drops are in different locations.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well,
And
I
enemy
don't
spawns are
really
too.
want to pay another $40
Fair.
to pick up Dark Souls 2 again
Yeah.
when I already have it.
When it first came out, there was some deal where it's like if you owned the original, you can get it for like $20 or something.
Oh,
so
really?
that's how I got it. But
Oh,
'Cause
maybe
I
I
totally
missed out
paid
on
for
that
both.
deal.
yeah,
Dang, because I'm already like 40% away. I don't want to like buy it
no,
again.
for sure.
So I'm like, I'm done that, and the plan is, I started playing Dark Souls 3 with Jordan a little bit. We slowed down for a little bit. He's not here, so I'm like, okay, I'll just hop on Dark Souls 2 because the plan was being Dark Souls 1 and then being Dark Souls 3 because I never beat Dark Souls 3, but I did beat Dark Souls 2. I just didn't beat all the DLC. But now I'm just gonna beat all the DLC on Dark Souls 2, then try to beat Dark Souls 3, and then see if I can beat Bloodborne or Bloodborne first, then Dark Souls 3. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Actually, that is the one that I haven't beat. Bloodborne.
Bloodborne.
Yeah.
And on a second note, I just realized something very funny. I may not like that cartoon animation style, but back when I was doing animation in school, I ended up making a demo reel that was cartoon anime.
Well, there you go.
That's probably why I'm not an animator today.
There you go.
But yeah, speaking of Bloodborne, I don't know why I hadn't really realized this until recently for some reason, but I also have not beaten the Bloodborne DLC.
Okay.
So I would really like to get that done.
Dun dun dun.
Getting
Because I
through
just
those games.
I just beat the first boss of it, and frick, those bosses are hard on the DLC. So, but yeah. Before we go on, I just had one quick thing I wanted to say too. I played Monster Hunter Double Cross demo on the Switch.
Oh.
Playing that on the Switch was super cool, except it's only in Japanese, so that made it hard. But it was fun.
Another thing, I was just looking at. I was just curious, like what movies were coming out soon, and I also looked at games and whatever, but that's not important.
Emoji
What's
Movie
important is that on August 21st, had no idea it was coming out. There is a new Starship Troopers movie.
What?
Oh yeah, it's like animated.
Wait, it's animated?
I
Animated?
think so.
What?
Okay. Well, that's okay. Because the number 2 and number 3 were.
Let me confirm that. Let me confirm that because I remember seeing.
Yeah, they were a little bit mad. But
The
the
fir-
first one
yeah,
was
the first-
freaking amazing.
The first one was so great.
I know.
And I was looking at reviews for it. They got not great reviews. I'm like, why? This movie was
it's
awesome.
a cult classic. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It didn't
It's
do well.
animated.
But then once it got to VHS, it was like.
That'll actually be a cool one to see animated though, because I feel like you could do a lot with that then.
Be careful what you wish for, Ryan.
Well, I'll probably
You might get berserk.
Yeah.
no, I'll probably watch it, but we'll see how it is.
Or what was that? What was that puppet one?
Team America World
Yeah,
Police.
Team America World Police.
That's easily one of the greatest movies I've ever seen in my life, and I'm
I
not.
went-
That's not sarcasm.
I watched that movie far too young and was so confused.
Same thing here. And actually, the funny part was I did not expect what I went to see, and that's what made it even worse but better.
Yeah.
Because some of the scenes I was just like, what the heck?
Well, I had seen commercials and clips from it before, but I didn't know what the movie was going to be like until I watched it.
Durka Durka.
Such a weird movie.
It was like when Borat came out. My dad and I went and
Yeah.
saw it in theaters, and Borat came out a while ago,
Yeah.
so I was pretty young. But
Yeah.
my dad is a pretty cool guy all around, so it wasn't oh, I'm so embarrassing this with my dad. It was embarrassing watching people walk out of the theater because they also didn't know what it was going to be, and there's some scenes I was like, oh no.
Well, I remember we went during the daytime to go see The Dictator. Do you remember that?
Sure do.
And it was only us in the theater and this really, really old couple.
Oh no.
And they had no idea what they were getting into because it's just another Sacha Baron Cohen
Yeah.
flick.
If you know the actor, either you are going. This is very much one of those things where you have to know the guy and what he does and the comedy that he does, or you will not like what you are about to
Yeah.
see.
Did you know that he was the voice of King Julian from Madagascar?
What?
Yeah. No
Actually?
joke. He was the voice of King Julian.
Okay, now that makes it even funnier.
Yeah.
Because that guy was hilarious.
No, to me though, the funniest one was still Mort, the little King Julian, like that guy.
Oh yeah, the pair of them in almost every Madagascar, I figured they made Madagascar more than anything else.
Yeah.
Because those two are just hilarious. That and the penguins,
Yeah, the penguins.
they were hilarious.
Oh, shut up! You're so annoying.
Oh boy. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of movies,
Speaking of movies.
Yeah,
I feel like we have an expert here with us. His name is Phil.
Yay.
Oh,
But-
I thought you were talking about me.
No, sorry, buddy.
Ah.
Maybe next time.
Phil. With
But no,
a
we
PH.
Phil, you have an insight to a very specific side of the film industry
Indeed.
that I think would be very, very interesting to talk about.
All right.
So to start us off, I've got some probing questions for you.
Let the probing begin.
Uh-oh.
What do you think some of the biggest name props you've worked on are?
The Tron bike would definitely be one of them.
Heyo.
Also, actually, an odd thing would definitely be for the Warcraft movie. We did a giant wall that a troll. Oh, it was kind of like the bad guy turned into a giant troll, and then he kind of
Yeah.
when he lost, he fell out of the
Yeah.
out of the building. They literally made a giant troll the same size as him, made the wall, and then threw the troll through the wall. That's how they actually created a
Whoa.
part of that scene. And we actually made the wall and the troll. And okay, I love this, but I hated it at the same time because the wall itself was made out of black foam. And when you start working with foam, the thing that you do the most is you melt it. You tend to cut through it with a hot wire. And you can find a million different YouTube videos on how to cut through foam very easily. However, when you throw ink into foam, it does not cut nicely. So they wanted these really intricate pieces out of black foam. We must have been I think that was one of the days that I did 24 hours straight trying to get this project done. Only thinking to myself, if I don't sleep, I'm going to have to do another like another 8 hours on top of this just so I can keep up with everything. It was insane, but the end result was very cool, and it's just one of those really neat things. On the other side, another really cool thing that I ended up making that wasn't like high end, but we ended up doing a lot of those Air Buddy movies. I know.
Awesome.
It's a very B thing, and the little dogs too, and they did like Adventure Buddies, and the Adventure Buddy, we had to make these giant cats because they were going into like what was like an Indiana Jones kind of thing.
Oh.
And I still remember walking in one day to 2 giant cats that had been built overnight, and my coworker was sitting at the very top petting a giant cat because he was sanding it smooth, but it looked like he was just petting this thing. And I was just like, what have I gotten myself into? Like, what? Oh, so it just craziness. But yeah, the whole thing that we end up doing really is because movies are moving forward so fast, they pump out so quickly. They're looking for new ways of speeding up their product, and one of the ways that we do it is we use machines to cut and sculpt the foam to a point where it's pretty much what they want from a 3D world. So they can have a guy sculpt out in like Z-Box wow, I think I just mixed 2 programs there at the same time. ZBrush or Mudbox, they can sculpt it out very nicely, get exactly what they want there, and do many different renditions. And then once it's done, they can be like, that's what we want. Then they can send it to a company like us. And we are actually outside of the movie business. They come to us a lot, but are actually outside of it.
Right. You're like contractors, I suppose, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're contractors. So we actually end up doing also like I think 2 of the 3. I think there's 3 Lego worlds in this world somewhere, and I've done 2 of them. And on top of that, we did like these giant fish. I gotta admit, I had a picture of these fish because it felt like we had created like 8 of these statues of giant fish men. And then when it was finished, I felt like I was in the lost city of Atlantis.
Oh, cool.
When they were finished. I was like,
That's
these
sweet.
are some pretty neat looking things. And but yeah, that's kind of what we ended up doing.
Let's talk about workflow for a sec. So you said foam. Is foam the primary material that you guys work with?
Yeah, foam and wood. So
Okay.
The workflow process is very, very simple or to say, not necessarily to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it really comes down to 3D model. Then that model gets adjusted so that way it can fit into foam slices. And then from those slices, we pull out parts of the model. And then from there, we are assembling, sanding, and sculpting. And this process is actually requires, like, you really... It's very simple, but at the same time, you need to know what you're doing when it comes down to sculpting because you got to be fast, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
So that's the big thing, is they want it, and they want it
Yep.
now.
so we had just worked on another show that I will not name.
Yep.
But this show needed their stuff done over the weekend in 2 days, and there was 10 giant objects. We literally looked at this and said, there's no way we are getting this done. And they fully thought that we were going to have it ready for them in 2 days. And very rarely do we find ourselves in these situations, but when we do, it's a catastrophe because they can't move their dates. They literally
Right.
cannot move their dates. If they're shooting on the Thursday and they expected us to have stuff done on the Wednesday, it has to be done on that Wednesday.
Well, because their logistics are insane, right? They have
Oh,
to
yeah.
rent the space and have the people and
Oh,
the
yeah.
catering and the actor and blah, blah, blah,
I mean,
right?
you talk to Cole after you talk to me, he'll talk about the side of once it's all there and set, then they've got their shooting dates.
Right.
And when they've got their shooting dates, oh man, it's even more insane. Like the actors that do this stuff, they're strong people, actors. They really are, because they go through some craziness to just get all the shots done from all the different angles. When you watch a single scene from a movie, like let's take Lord of the Rings for example. If you take a single shot from the Lord of the Rings, like the Riders of Rohan, where they had all the horses riding by, turning around and coming to just confront the main protagonists.
Mm-hmm.
That shot alone, no props needed. They were all outside shots. I wouldn't doubt there was about probably like 3 to 4 days of just shooting just to get the shots that they wanted. And it wasn't once. It was like 10 times. These people probably had to ride these horses and turn around and turn it back. Ride these horses, turn around and turn back. Because they need multiple shots to make sure that they get everything that they want. And sometimes, most of the time, once they're done with those shots, when they go to compositing, most of it gets deleted. It's not even used. And that's the crazy part, is they need more shots than they can use. That way, when they're done, they have a good movie.
Yeah, speaking of crazy shots, the last week's Game of Thrones episode, for everybody who's caught up, was an insane battle that took place. And they released a behind-the-scenes kind of thing about how they filmed it.
So good, that behind the scenes.
It was amazing. This was the show with they have the world record now of the most live burns at the same time. So like people in the burn suits getting burned. It was like 20, I think.
Oh wow!
Yeah, which is the way the pyrotech guy was talking about it is insane, because in the center of the pile of people, like, it gets really hot in the middle, and so they need to be like right on it to save these people, like with the fire extinguishers or whatever. And like all these explosions and stuff, like that scene was crazy. I could only imagine.
Well, sorry. I was just gonna say that, like, the one thing that I find amazing too is, like, in the whole filming process, like, there are all these takes, all these different angles, all that. Just the fact that you think a bunch of things are either improvised or ad-libbed, like the fact that made it into the movie because that shot was good enough, like, that's insane. Like you were saying, Lord of the Rings. Shortly after that scene where they saw the Riders of Rohan, there's the scene where Aragorn goes and finds the pile of bodies looking for the hobbits, and he kicks the helmet, breaks his toe, and it, like, his reaction when he kicked the helmet, like, was screaming and yelling, and that was his actual reaction.
Yes, it was.
But that made it into the movie. So the fact that shot was good enough to make it into the movie is a miracle.
You want to know what's probably even crazier? The moment he broke his foot, they got him to a point where he was good again, but they kept rolling probably.
Oh.
And that's the other part, is when you watch actors. Another one is Leonardo DiCaprio.
I was just going to say in Django.
In Django, he actually cut himself and then used that cut to create a more, just a better scene. But the thing is, they didn't stop. They bandaged him up, and they kept going.
Well, because, he like slammed his hand on the table, but he didn't see the glass there.
Yeah.
And he broke the glass, like, cut open his hand, and just, like, kind of went like, "Arr!" and, like, kept rolling with it.
Yep.
And made the scene creepy, too, by, like, going up to the one woman and wiping the
blood on him.
wiping the blood on her face. And she, like, you can see her face. Like, there's no acting there.
No.
She was legit.
Legit, like,
What
did you just put on my face?
She was legit horrified at what Leonardo DiCaprio just did to her.
Yeah. Nah, man, the movie business, it's at the same time, it's cutthroat, it's ruthless. And on the other side, it's like this amazing enterprise where you just see some of the most amazing people.
Yeah.
Like, the crew that I have running under me, I have got to say, have got to be some of the most amazing men I have ever had the privilege to work with. And that is because these guys go all out every day to see a product that, when shipped out, probably has at the most 10 seconds of screen time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And they go, they do 16-hour days, they do 12 hours, 18s, and then they go hard. And just to see this product get out. And it's amazing. Like, when we see our stuff, oh man, we laugh sometimes. We laugh so hard when we make a mistake on something and they get all angry that it doesn't look good. And then you watch the movie and it's there for a second. And you're just like, that whole Scream Fest was about 1 second in a movie that probably, it didn't even matter.
Yeah.
Didn't even matter.
Yeah, speaking of which, so I think everybody who is niche into something notices this. So this is a little bit of a gimme question, but because you work on props, does it change and affect your movie watching experience?
Honestly, no.
Really?
I am very easy to make happy
Okay.
when it comes to that stuff. I come out like I'm one of the guys who liked The Mummy. I literally went out and I was like, that was awesome.
So you don't have that, like, staring at the screen like, oh, look at that prop. Like, I wish we made that prop instead of like these guys because we would have done it like this kind of thing.
No, actually,
Really?
no. And in truth, when I watch, I'm always critiquing in a positive light of, ooh, that looked really good. I wonder how I would do it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Inspiration.
Yes, it was
Almost.
more inspirational than
interesting.
anything. And when you see certain things, especially, oh man, when we watched Baby Driver,
Yep.
that movie, when I heard, I think it was you who told me that it wasn't special effects, it was mainly all practical.
Yep.
When you told me that, I went in thinking something different. And when I watched that, I was just like, I could see it all and how they cut their stuff so well.
Yeah, they consulted the live action director of Mad Max.
Oh, of
For their
course,
scenes.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it was spot on. Those car chases, oh, I loved every moment of it watching that.
That intro car scene where he flips the car around backwards to go around the one semi and then flips it around the other way to go back through the trailer.
Yep.
Like,
beautifully cut at that one moment and then continued,
Yep.
so that way it looks like it's all one thing. So once again, fooling the audience, but at
Yes.
the same time, watching it, I'm just like, he still turned that car the opposite direction. He turned it one direction and then somehow brought it back another way.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that is bravo.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Beautiful.
small clap in the theater, and everybody's like, who's clapping? Who's doing that?
speaking of cuts, have you seen do you guys remember what it's called? The Kings something?
Kingsman?
No, not Kingsman. It's a movie about a guy in a play, and the way it's filmed, it looks like there's no cuts in the entire film.
Oh, I have
Birdman?
heard of
Birdman.
this.
Birdman. Thank you, not King. Birdman.
Yes.
Birdman was a movie that
And there's 3 cuts in the entire movie.
yes, there actually are
Yeah.
cuts, but the way they hide them is brilliant.
Beautiful, yes.
Oh my goodness.
And
Beautiful movie.
they do, and honestly, that's exactly what makes a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
When you have someone behind with a really good idea and they go about executing it, and when they execute it, they have everything in mind, right down to the cuts.
Mm-hmm.
And that is among many things what good storyboarding is. And good storyboarding is sitting down, figuring out how in the world are we going to do this, and we know we're going to have to give our actors a pause at some point. So, and not to mention, if you're talking about a movie that has 3 cuts, they had to do that probably 1,000,000 times.
Well,
Yep.
one of the things I'm curious about was that movie an original screenplay as well?
Birdman?
Because if so,
That's a good question.
because if it was an original screenplay, whoever's writing it has to have that in their mind the entire time. That every scene,
Yep.
like I can't have a scene that we're like interior so and so's house, then the next scene is exterior at the football field or whatever.
That's
like,
probably the director writing it.
yeah.
I'm just guessing because I haven't actually seen it, but I wouldn't doubt that. Yeah, you're probably right. Either the director was involved, or the person writing it. You're right. Literally had, okay, I'm going to be writing this story, knowing that I'm going to try and actually probably he tried to make it for the whole thing to be 1 cut.
Yeah.
And then
Like
later on, they were like,
Logistically, it's like we just can't do this.
Yeah, like every single scene you write has to happen in the next room or the next, like we're walking out the door to the street and things have to happen here. Like we can't just skip ahead. Like there has to be the conversation here.
Now, I haven't seen the movie, but there are also other things that would also cause for like being an issue. For example, when you get those cuts where you get a guy who's walking down the street, takes a left into a cafe, and then seamlessly the camera follows him and as they go into the cafe, and he stands in line to grab his coffee before, everything goes crazy and guns are blazing. Well, in order to do that, there are guys on the side. That cafe window that you didn't notice was actually split in half because for the cameraman, he needs to walk through the window. And so you got like
Yeah.
3 guys who are actually hiding around the corner, waiting for the guy to turn the corner so they can run, grab the window with suction cups or whatever they're doing, and then just take it off. And then he's walking through. I've seen some crazy stuff where like you got like this crazy guy, crazy cameraman, which quite frankly, I'm sure Cole will tell you there's plenty of them, but he's running
Christian's one of them,
beside
too.
a guy who is riding on a bike and takes a tumble over top of a car, but the camera goes through the car. And the cameraman actually runs and dives onto a platform inside the car, sliding through the car and
Oh
then
my
landing on
goodness.
the other
I saw
side.
that GIF.
Yes, that
So
GIF,
cool.
that is legit. That is what the movie business is like. Because they're like, how are we going to do this? We can't just do down to like when you have those scenes when you have a spaceship and you're trying to view everybody in a tight quarter spaceship. Oh, there are so many walls that they're pulling off and they're pulling back, and they're so that way they can actually get to that shot of the person sitting right there. You never notice it. It never breaks for you until you actually sit there and you're like, oh, I want to do this. So you try and do the same shot in your car, and you're like, oh my word, how did they get that angle of the guy so close up? I can't even put my phone, which is this big, like just a 4 by 10 inch phone that's 3 millimeters or whatever thick, and you're talking about a camera that is 2 feet by 10 inches by a foot. Then this camera has to sit there so they can get their IMAX quality video.
Yeah.
And it's got to be in that tight space. They do some crazy tricks to make that work.
Yeah, one of the things I find a little disappointing with the whole how Hollywood works kind of thing is how much money actors make as opposed to the rest of the crew.
Yeah.
I swear most of the money they make is probably overtime pay. That's probably what it is.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, like a lot of these actors put in the work, they put in the time,
Yep.
like they've earned it.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's like what you're just saying, like there's cameramen like this, and they're probably not making a fraction.
You're right.
of
And
what
they're keeping up with the guys. Now, a part of me feels like I agree, but another side that most people don't see, the let's see if I can get this right. Amnesty. Oh, jeez.
Amnesty?
No, it's the fact that they are always in the limelight.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have a personal life.
Anonymity.
Everybody knows their favorite actor. Everybody has that whole thing. And even nowadays, it's actually kind of dying down. Like, people like, Tom Cruise, but The Mummy still got a horrible rating.
It's funny you say that. The super fan, I think, is alive and well, but it's shifting away from actors.
Yes.
You see it a lot.
More directors and behind the scenes.
Well, even like the big place I'm seeing it right now is YouTube.
Oh,
yeah, YouTube
There,
for sure.
There's some YouTube personalities. Like I don't know if you guys know who Jake Paul is.
Oh no!
I didn't even want to say his name on this podcast because like he is just he's just the antithesis of like everything I believe in. But like this guy has like 20 to 30 13-year-old girls like stalking him outside his house at like all times.
And what did this guy do? Nobody knows except for the Disney thing.
Yeah.
I think he was on Disney.
He was on Disney. He's not
him,
anymore.
And now he's famous. Why? Because Disney cut him. How that works, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I have so many things to say about this whole topic, but I don't know if I should dive into there. But just kind of like going back to your counterpoint with the whole like they have no personal life kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I appreciate about old Hollywood is that the actors were still being paid a lot, but
and they had their issues back then too.
They definitely had their issues, but it was nobody's business back then. Like
it was harder too.
Yeah. Like we didn't have all the methods, but it also was like I think in that kind of, I think our culture has changed in the sort of way that that is people want to know everything. We have access to everything. Mm-hmm. We feel a right to know everything. Back then, like, man, your personal life's your personal life. I don't care if I see you on the big screen. Like, it's not my business. It's nobody's business. Like, it's your thing. And so some of these actors like kind of had messed up outside lives, but no one knew about it. Like apparently, I don't want to. I'm not trying to spread. Allegedly, Johnny Carson had. Not the greatest personal life, but nobody really knew too much about it until afterwards.
Yeah, and there's stuff like that stuff still sneaks by, and even still stuff still sneaks by. It's just people tend to be sometimes not the smartest when they're on the internet. That's the main thing is how. Yeah. I mean, like, I love. I forget the kid's name who's playing Spider-Man right now.
Tom Holland.
I love him as Spider-Man, but man, that guy, he knows how to spoil things real good.
Yeah. I've heard of that.
But you're right. It goes back and forth. There were still scandals back then. There's going to be scandals now and that kind of stuff. But the hard work was still put in, and
Yeah.
and they had issues then too. Actually, a lot of strikes, and even now when you hear like we've had plenty of writer strikes that kind of happen and stuff like that, and it's still mainly because the film industry is still overworked by individuals that are extremely talented. And because when you deal with people who are extremely talented, and you bring in someone who is less talented, but at the same time, if he puts the effort into it, can become just as talented, they're going to choose the extremely talented person.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts to create a gap. And I mean, I think Disney had the same issue of, like when they realized that they were fully staffed, their staff was great, but they were all getting older, and there was nobody coming in behind.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to start bringing in the students, because if they didn't, it would all go under because there was nobody taking on.
You're seeing that in a lot of industries right now.
Yeah.
Specifically government. Government is insane for not wanting to hire young people.
Yes.
So they have all the baby boomers right now working in that industry. And I know this has nothing to do with film, but it's happening everywhere, right?
Oh yeah, and that's exactly the issue. But yeah, it's just you're not gonna get away from it. It is everywhere, like you said.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still a great industry. And quite frankly, some of the crazy stories. Oh man, the crazy stories that I could tell, but I really shouldn't
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah.
Fair kind of thing. About things that we've done. It's pretty fun. It's lots of fun.
You mentioned something a few minutes ago about storyboarding in movies and editing. We were talking about that. And something jumped to mind, and I want to get your opinion on. Have you seen Suicide Squad?
Yes, I have.
So arguably that movie's terrible, right? Like
Okay.
the storyboarding, the editing, like there's just that movie doesn't have a lot going for it in that way. Something that movie does have going for it though is it's
Will
costume.
Smith.
No,
Yep, I agree.
Will
Carry
Smith.
on.
It's,
What is this? Some kind of Suicide Squad?
it's costume design.
Yeah.
When you watch a movie like that, do you like? What's your perspective there? Like, are you?
I love costume design. It's not my... Well, I should say it is only partly my alley, because we do small parts of costume design. We'll do bodies for them, and if they need a prop like a weapon or a gun or a necklace or something like that, we'll 3D print it or something like that.
Right.
But when it comes down to actual costume design, oh man, those guys are amazing. They are their own world, and when you come up with a good-looking costume, it's when you really want to look at what a good costume is, as opposed to what a good costume is on paper. Look at a comic book character. Look at a comic book character in the movies.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
You got a person who sits there and looks at like art reference and goes, "Why would you ever do this to a person? Why would you have such like webbing coming off of in their armpits? Why would you do this? You lose all motion in your arms if you ever do that." And they turn it into something real. And
Yeah.
they
That's
are
crazy.
They're crazy. They're an amazing set of people who like just somehow make magic with cloth
Yeah. And leather.
and leather. Oh, the leather.
Oh, the leather.
Well, that kind of leads us into our something is something for
That's
this
where
week,
I thought you were going.
which is what is our favorite movie-wise? Maybe we could do games too, because why not? What's your favorite? No, let's keep this physical. What's your
Yeah.
favorite prop/costume of all time?
My favorite prop/costume of all time. See, you told me you were coming to this.
I did.
Still can't think of one because there's so many good ones.
Yeah.
However, one that actually, I'll make this more about what we ended up doing. One we ended up doing, and one I thought was very, very cool and very simple, was actually the key for the Kryptonian
Oh, Man of
way.
Steel.
Man of Steel.
Yeah.
That key was so cool because when they had this thing built, they wanted it so when Superman put it in, it shone. And the amount of effort they had to go in just so that Superman could put in this key and boo, a little bit of light would come out was so much. It took the guy that worked on it in our crew, it took him probably about 3 days to get the key printed, get the thing set up, figure out the wiring, figure out the lighting, figure out the lighting positioning so that way it would shine nicely, which was very simple. It was all very simple stuff, and he knew exactly where he was going to go with it. But getting it all done took him quite a bit of time just for a shot that lasted 3 seconds.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that would be my favorite prop. That actually, oh man, now I'm thinking of others. Another one that's like,
Just say it.
Go for it.
it was Sucker Punch, another horrible movie.
Oh, I know that.
You know
movie.
what? I kind of liked Sucker Punch.
No,
I kind of like that movie too.
I liked Sucker Punch too. I remember me and my best friend in high school, we went to see that when it came out, and we were so excited. We walked out of the theater. We're like, that was an amazing movie.
'Kay.
It was great.
So the prop on that was when she opens up and she's given this, I think her guns or her weapons. There are these little keychains that mean nothing to the entire story, but they spent so much time and money on these keychains, and they were on there for 3 seconds. And those things, they looked so cool, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to see what they're gonna do with it. I was like, oh, really? Like, that's it? Oh, okay. But yeah, there's other stories that I could tell about that, but those are probably my two favorite, just because of the significance and time that really went into those.
Do you have any like specific favorites that weren't, or that your crew didn't work on?
Specific favorites that my crew didn't work on. You know
Could-
what? You're gonna have to come back to me on that one.
Okay. Could be
Cause-
costumes too.
Could be costumes too.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me a second. I can probably think of a good one too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we come back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come back. Okay.
Mine, I don't. This is the kind of stuff that props and costumes I don't pay a ton of attention to when I'm watching movies, but the kind of stuff that really does grab my eye are things like Batman's anti-Superman suit in Batman v Superman.
Oh, okay.
That suit is like I love kind of like overly mechanical suit type things.
yeah, and it's like a night suit of armor basically
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, or like
Which one?
in Batman v Superman, he has like his regular Batman suit, but the suit he wears to fight Superman.
Did you know he couldn't see out of that mask?
Oh, no, but that's
He quite
awesome.
literally could not see out of that mask. When they were doing all the throws, I think they had to do a count system or something, because he literally couldn't see where he was throwing his punches.
That's so funny.
I know. That's the movie world.
There you go. There's some insight. But yeah, things like that, or like I was originally going to say the Hulkbuster, but that was obviously CGI. But just stuff like that, right? Like
Yeah.
overly bulky, like very purpose-built mechanical suits. I just love.
Well, technically the Hulkbuster would be a costume, wouldn't it? Or are we talking
Yeah.
like actual physical costume?
I was kind of coming this from like a physical angle.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, AJ?
I don't know if this might be Ryan's too, but Deadpool's outfit is so good.
I
Katana.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I knew you had made swords for something, and I was like, what were they? Yeah, that's right. They were Deadpool swords.
Heyo.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So there you go. You hear to her, folks. Phil made the katanas for Deadpool.
That's right.
But yeah, Deadpool's
Phil
costume.
is Deadpool.
Phil is Deadpool.
Phil, can you answer this question for me?
What question is that?
Are you working on Deadpool too?
If I could, I wouldn't be
No,
able to answer
I
that.
Oh,
So
no.
yes.
He totally is.
You guys believe what you want to believe.
Secrets.
But yeah, no, Deadpool's costume is so
Yeah.
good. It's so good.
Any like specific props?
Props? His katanas, man. I'm like, I don't know who made them, but if I ever met the person, I'd give him a hug.
You
Shake
wouldn't
his
buy
hand.
him
I
a
would
pizza,
shake
would
his
you?
hand.
Just wondering, because
Maybe, you never
do it
know.
with
Depends what he likes.
Oh my goodness.
No, I mean, nothing really comes to mind. But when the question was brought up to me, I just thought of Deadpool. I just thought
yeah.
of Deadpool.
Oh,
Got it.
I thought of another good one.
I thought of a really good one actually as well.
All of the Doctor Who sonic screwdrivers.
Oh, those
Oh.
are
Oh,
I
that's good.
love those.
Oh, yeah.
Especially
I
David
love
Tennant's.
the one that you
the-
made.
Have I talked about that on the show?
I don't
No.
know. If we have.
No.
So I don't know if I've actually talked about my background, but I'm into computer science. That's my jam, and a part of that comes with a lot of tinkering with things. And so, one day I got this idea of like, so there's this piece of software out there called a TV Be Gone, and so it's a little like gag thing you can buy, and it has all of the off codes for TVs in them, and so you can point at a TV and hold the button, and it'll turn a TV off. So they're kind of cool. I found the code for them online, and I was like, oh, I bet you I can make something cool with this. So I put the code into this, like, I bought all these like pieces, soldered together this little contraption that had, like, and it was tiny, and I fit it into David Tennant's sonic screwdriver, and, like, cut the top of it out. So now I had this sonic screwdriver.
This is my favorite prop right now.
My sonic screwdriver that it was never in any piece of media. And we were delinquents that would take this thing to McDonald's and turn off all, because, like, if you go to McDonald's, you see all their monitors behind the counter.
Oh,
those were all just
no.
TVs. You could turn them off with the remote. Or, like, we would go to the theater and they had the same thing too, all the TVs in the back, and they had all, like, the TVs for the advertisements that were kind of higher up. It's like boop 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 boop.
See, the funny part
I think
is
it was so much
this
fun.
is what the movie industry is built off of. People who have enough time to get into trouble with electronics, and they're like, well, I got to do something with this to make money, or else I'm not going to be able to make money.
I don't know if I've shared this story with you guys, but I brought it to a security, like a computer security conference once, and we were talking about this concept of, like, authenticating, right? Like the reason devices are secure is, like, you use your password to authenticate, right? But in a TV situation, the way you control the TV signals is by shooting infrared light, and there's no authentication, obviously, because the TV just is like, oh, I see the infrared light to turn off, I turn off. So I turned off the presenting TV that they were using at the security conference with the remote.
Oh no!
And, like, everyone kind of was like, "Oh, that's weird," and turned it back on and kept going. And then I talked to the presenter of the thing, like, "Hey, I made this device, and, like, I thought it was kind of interesting about your like one-sided authentication thing and how the TVs don't authenticate." And he's like, "That was mean. You shouldn't have done that." Like, oh, I thought it gave a pretty good point.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I still remember the one time I came to the theater and you were waiting for a few minutes and you just came out downstairs, like, completely straight faced, like, I was kind of bored, so I just turned off all the TVs. And I'm like, is it on upstairs? You're like, no, I didn't turn it back on.
oh, that thing was
Rebel.
fun. And then it broke because I wasn't very good at soldering, so there was, like, the button I had to, like, jerry rig from the toy sonic screwdriver was, like, weirdly tucked in this like in the back of the toy, and I didn't have a good way to get to the wire, so the soldering broke after, like, a few weeks. But
Aw.
it was fun while it lasted.
How about you, Ryan? Have you got one?
Yeah. Well, I actually saw the whole prop thing. I'm like, man, like, what your best prop? And I was thinking, like, I'm breaking this down. Like, what makes a good prop for a movie? And I was like, Phil's here. Like, maybe he can back me up on this. So my idea for a good movie prop or something that stands out is something that can either, like, A, really catch the eye and kind of be visually stunning in a way, or B, be a massive plot device. So my mind went to the plot device thing, and it was the One Ring from Lord of the Rings. Because it's so simple, but it drives an entire trilogy.
That's
I
actually
changed my
very
mind.
true. Like, the
Ryan
idea
wins.
behind it is actually very, like, it's very powerful and yet so simple.
Yeah. I feel like I got a bit of just Phil affirming my thinking there. I feel proud of myself now.
That kind of reminds me. Have you seen the movie Primer, Phil?
No, I don't think I have.
It's like a $3,000 budget movie of time travel, and the time machines they use are, like, cardboard boxes, and they climb into the cardboard box and close the cardboard box, and, like, has these, like, dollar store, like, tubes and stuff on the inside, but, like, they make it work in, like, a kind of compelling way.
Oh man, that sounds awesome. Actually,
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that I like to see. Just those odds and ends.
Yeah, it used to be on Netflix, and it's the kind of movie. I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago, but it has, like, 17 timelines. It's the whole movie takes place in a week, but it's like so and so, like, goes here and then realizes he screwed up, so goes back to the beginning and then does this 17 times, and then goes back a week earlier than he normally does to, like, tell himself at one point to not do this, and, like, you don't realize that until the
Whoa.
post-credit scene. It's like it's messed up. Like,
That's crazy.
the movie goes places, but yeah, their prop for the time machine was interesting.
The prop that I now realized that is probably my favorite, all-time favorite, is the Death Star. And the Death
Ooh.
Star was actually made when they did all those close-up shots of when Luke Skywalker was going in to destroy it. They made that entire scene mainly out of battleship pieces.
Like model, like kit bashing.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
And that, to me, actually is one of the best parts about when you go to, like, Comic-Con and you get these people who they just are very creative, and they just literally pull something and then put it together with something else, spray it, and it becomes a whole new thing.
Yeah, there's a whole scene
Wow.
called kit bashing, which is
Yes.
taking like the 7 model kits and like making walking tanks from like alternate era Soviet like war machine stuff. It's so cool.
Yeah, and that scene when I first heard that they had used nothing but battle, like not nothing but they used a large amount, like they just literally bought hundreds of battleships games and just pulled all the battleships out and started gluing them together. I
Oh,
was
that's-
like,
that's so cool.
amazing.
Insane.
Yeah. So that would have to be my all-time favorite prop, the
Yeah.
Death Star.
And that actually relates to what I was gonna say for my favorite costume. Best costume of all time is Darth Vader.
Darth Vader, yeah.
Oh,
The
President.
yeah, it's just.
Josh is obviously not agreeing.
But no. Okay, here's the thing. If you ever see just a glimpse of Darth Vader, or like just an image of his costume, your mind immediately thinks of like darkness and evil.
This guy's going to kill me.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Like it. I feel like if you can make a costume that instantly strikes fear into the heart of your enemies, but then as a viewer outside of that, you will forever associate with villainy and just darkness and like anger. That's the most amazing costume job you can do, in my opinion. Like, yes, it did, especially in the original Star Wars, it looked like crap. Like when you look,
You're right.
when,
Actually.
when you look at Star Wars Episode 4 compared to Empire,
Mm-hmm.
the difference in his costume is insane.
Yep.
Because the helmet, like it had in the first one, it had the red lenses. Like there's points where you can kind of glimpse an eye behind the red lens. The mask had like it just looked like someone didn't like polish it or sand it down properly or anything. Like the thing on his chest was kind of bouncing around a bit. Like it wasn't that great.
Really
But
hanging on him.
yeah.
I think it's more, and like I'm definitely not saying you're wrong, but I think it's definitely a thing of it's a lot more of an icon than it is a fantastic costume.
Yeah,
That could
I
be
agree
as
with
well.
that too. Like, what? Like, oh man, it's what makes a good costume might not just be the idea that's behind the costume or the person that like the character itself. What might actually be the very good part about the costume is the small details that you don't really see and you don't really notice.
Mhm.
Like a good example I almost kind of feel might be like Iron Man. It's
Okay.
very simple, but it looks very slick.
Yeah.
And yet, honestly, you know that the amount of gadgets that pop out of this thing, there's no way this
Yeah.
thing actually is holding that many gadgets.
Yeah.
And yet, the believability is there because the costume design it's helping the character be created. Kind of thing.
Something I've always appreciated about the Tony Stark design in the Marvel movies is his facial hair. Like his facial hair is always cut in like a very distinct and like weird way that you would never see facial hair cut before, but like it works on Robert Downey Jr. enough to be like, yeah, this looks like, I don't know, this feels like something that Tony Stark would do, or like if Elon Musk had facial hair, like I could see him doing like weird designs like that, you know
Oh,
what I
yeah.
mean?
And you're totally right. Like that whole actually I think when Marvel was bought out by Disney and Disney finally got a hold of it and started going somewhere with it, like you could really see the costume changes. Like they really had lines that would strike, like be very visible. They were simpler and yet they were very very strong. Like they held the character intact from what everybody remembered.
I really loved the Doctor Strange costume.
Oh, yeah.
So
good.
good. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Same
That was a really good movie.
Yeah.
too.
Black Panther's costume as well too. Like it's so smooth.
It's sleek.
The Black Panther trailer. I gotta admit, when I saw the actual image of the trailer, I was like, "Oh my word! Is this the one where Disney drops the ball?" I was like, "Oh, this can't be good." I clicked on it. The soundtrack
Yeah.
alone.
The end
good.
scene when the title card comes up, there's like the ding 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 ding. I don't know.
Yes.
I'm so bad with music, but like the
oh yeah, when he
Ding,
does that
ding,
whole
ding.
thing and lands, and it's just like ding 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 ding.
it,
ding.
So
I was like
good.
jaw drop, like oh that was amazing.
Black Panther is gonna be really sick.
It's gonna be so good.
Yeah, I'm excited.
But going back a couple steps, just like a thought I was having to back to Darth Vader because I love my Star Wars stuff. No, one of the things I thought that was great though too is just like whoever designed that helmet, like there must have been thought as to what the character was like prior.
Oh yeah.
Because just the fact that they made it so expressionless, it's a robot face, but it's still still a human.
It's a medical device.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
which is I think factors a lot into the design, especially the facial mask that looks like a respirator.
Yeah.
Right. And definitely intentional.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, and that's the other thing. Like when you have a costume on scene, especially when you come from a book or something like that, because that's where I believe that Star Wars started off as a series of books. I believe.
I don't think so.
No.
I think it was George Lucas's baby
Was it? Is
child.
it?
Mind
baby?
child.
Okay.
Baby child.
It was his baby child.
my
Mind
new
child.
movie,
You
Baby
mean
Child.
after his
Was it my baby?
his what was this other movie that he had before then?
American Graffiti.
No, or something. It was something rabbit.
Oh. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
No, because that's a good movie. No,
Yeah,
no, he
you're
had
saying Star Wars wasn't his first and best movie.
oh yeah, that's for sure. The first movie that he did, it was atrocious.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he came up with the whole Star Wars thing, and then that was a great thing that he kind of came off of. But yeah, you're right. Like normally when they have a scene or anything, they go through an entire who the character is, what is it supposed to look like, what is it supposed to represent, and then you have that whole character creation, and it goes through rendition after rendition after rendition, and
Yeah.
it's days of tireless drawing.
Yeah. Well, and just the fact too, like having scenes with him, like it matches his personality so much because there will be scenes where the camera's on him, and he doesn't like something might be said, but he doesn't respond. But it's just showing the mask, and you can tell there's just I don't know, like it's got to be something with how they designed it. Like just the look of it makes it seem like he's thinking, he's angry. But
Yeah.
he's not saying a word.
And there's definitely like the whole I don't really know what the technical term is, but it tends to be like the power of lines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When they're focused in a certain way, cuts are done a certain way, they make them look more aggressive.
Yeah. One of the other things I was going to say too, and like I think it was 2013 or maybe 2015, Marvel, because that's where when Disney got the right to Star Wars, Marvel started remaking Star Wars comics. And one of those series was a Darth Vader series. The person, I think it was, I can't remember the writer's name, but anyway, he wrote this so well because there were so many panels where Darth Vader would be talking to someone and someone would say something, and then it'd just be a blank panel with just Darth Vader's blank expression. But you can just, like, there was power behind that.
Man, and it just sort of some of the stuff that we've also worked on. I mean, like, it takes a lot of time to create a good costume. Like, for example, Death Note. Have you guys seen the trailer for Death Note at all yet?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I forget what the Ryuk, yeah. We had to do his body for Death
No.
Note.
Okay.
And excuse me. But yeah, the it wasn't just like, oh, we're gonna copy this kind of thing. It was, we had to do at least 3 different versions of the body. One for what the actual body was like, because he was really spindly, and then one for the actual person who was doing it, so they could match it, and then another one on top of that because they probably at some point were like, we don't need any of this, let's just do this kind of thing. And so it just, they go where they need to go to create this thing, but there is such a process, there's a long process behind it, and then when you finally see that final project, it usually is like a culmination of like one guy working really hard and 5 people behind him going, nope, change this. Nope, change this.
I wonder if the other Shinigami is in there too, going to be in that
Maybe.
movie.
We'll find out.
Interesting.
This is a movie, not or is it a Netflix series?
It's a
Yes, it
Netflix
is.
movie.
Oh, it's a
Oh, it's a
Netflix
movie. I thought it was going to be a series.
Oh, okay, it might be.
I don't know. I honestly
I thought it was a
don't
Netflix movie. Either way, it's a
I'll find
Netflix.
out.
It's a Netflix thing.
It's on
know. Man,
Netflix.
Netflix
Yeah,
is
soon.
literally like
Kinda.
it's taken over everything.
You know, I was
Yeah.
actually having this discussion with somebody the other day. I wonder if Disney has just announced that they're pulling all of their content from Netflix and that they're going to be doing their own streaming service.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Does this include like Star Wars?
Everything.
And, oh.
Is going to be on their streaming service. So this makes some scary world of like, so now you're expecting me to have a Netflix account, an HBO account, a Disney account, like what's the other, some other good ones like
Crunchyroll,
Crunchyroll.
yeah.
I'm also going to point this out. This is exactly what everybody's also wanted.
It is, and I agree with that, but at the same time, I would rather pay one source like $80 a month and then have it never change and get all the content I want, right?
Yeah.
Because right now, and yes, the problem behind it was cable, right? Like the cable thing is, I pay $40 for a special package or whatever just to get HBO and 7 other channels I don't care about, right? And that's gonna be like Disney stuff. Now that Disney's acquired Star Wars, right? Like, I still like Disney animated movies, but if I'm going to be going to Netflix to watch them, it's probably going to be the Star Wars or Marvel stuff, right?
Yeah. Oh.
So now I'm going to be stuck with, 2/3 of content that I do want, but 1/3 of content I don't want, right?
Yep.
And if everyone, like HBO, for example, the only reason I would ever pay for an HBO subscription is Game of Thrones. And unless they come out with another crazy good show, like the second HBO is done with Game of Thrones, I would drop that subscription right away, right?
I'm just going to point out this. How many times have we bought a console just so we could play one game?
No, and there's a reason this stuff is out there, right?
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that. But I'm just worried we're going to do a big circle where it comes back to like now you're paying for the base streaming service of like these things,
yeah,
and then
I
now
see
you
it.
have to buy the HBO package, and you have to buy the Marvel package, and you have to buy the animated Disney package, right?
Yep.
And then we're just going to be back in the same spot we are with cable right now.
Yes. Only it's going to be online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of our news comes from Reddit and YouTube instead of cable.
Yeah.
I doubt that's ever going to happen. But at the same
It's
time,
already happened.
Yeah.
I don't know the last time I watched the news on TV.
I think if you're over 45, you watch the news on TV.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if you
it's
have
true.
time, because I don't watch the news because I have no time to watch the
Yeah,
news.
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
What I was kind of thinking that's eventually where things would go, because it like at this point too, Netflix has enough of their own like made content that they could probably have just a streaming service for their content alone. Like, forget about all these other movies and stuff they have on. It'd be a definitely way smaller list, but it'd be enough to kind of allow them to have that kind of streaming service.
Yeah.
And I think too, I just started watching Star Wars: The Clone Wars, that animated show.
Oh, man. Actually, there's some really good Star Wars information in that TV show.
Yeah, that's why I started watching it, because
They-
I never had.
They bring up the gray in that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And that's actually, if you watch that series, you'll get a lot more information on the gray there than you will from a lot of other places.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it's really
Yeah.
interesting how that whole works.
And I've heard Rebels was pretty good too.
Mhm.
So I want to watch Clone Wars so then I can watch Rebels. But yeah, I started watching Clone Wars on Netflix. I was like, this title is only available till September like 8th or something. So I'm guessing that's why, because it's being pulled to the Disney thing.
Yeah.
Actually, in the way Netflix, oh man, actually, now that we're on the whole Netflix thing, Netflix only recently has had to stop, like pull back from a couple and cut a couple of their shows. They have been a juggernaut lately.
Yeah, the amount of original content they put out is
Oh, yeah.
insane.
And even
Yeah.
if it's not like doing well, they still pump it out.
Yep.
It's always there. And that's, people were like, oh my word. Like a lot of people in the industry were like, this is like unheard of, unseen. People were kind of like, oh, what the heck is this? And like they were getting uptight about it. And when finally it happened where they're like, okay, we're going to cut this and this and this, everybody was relieved because they're like nothing stopping them. They were like Intel for a bit there where they just like were always on the top kind of thing.
And when their first kind of original series and things were coming out, it seemed very kind of indie style with like a bunch of actors like you might not know.
Mm-hmm.
But now like a month or two ago, they came out with that movie with Brad Pitt in it.
Yep.
And it's a Netflix original.
Dude, they've got a Netflix original with Will Smith. I'm going to be watching that one.
That's the fantasy one, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that one. Oh, shoot, what's
Josh
it called?
is shaking his head right now. I'm just going to point that out.
It looks really cool.
It looks so good.
In a time and place right now where we are, where there are some very racially charged debates going on in society, and the intro scene of that is a guy killing another race because they seem like a pest when it comes out front of his house.
Oh, the ferry?
The ferry?
Yep.
That made a lot of people very unhappy.
But I think that's where they're going.
I do too.
Is because he gets paired with like that orc. Is it an orc?
Yeah. And that's the whole premise of the fact is it's about making a point on that racial discrimination within America, only they're doing it with
fantasy
races.
Because he's like, oh, like got an orc for my partner, like what, like, and he's all upset about it, and
everybody else was kind of taking him down on it, but he seemed like he was like, it'll work out,
and that's cool. Like that's a fun story, but why would you open your trailer with like basically a murder?
Yeah, no,
you know what I mean.
That wasn't a good call because when I'll admit when I did see that part, I was like, what's this about? Like what's going on here?
That's
like,
really interesting because I actually, oddly enough, was not bothered by that.
But it's not like I was offended.
No, but the reason why is because from all the lore that I've ever learned, fairies were always pests. They were always considered pests.
Oh, that's true.
And they were always considered very weak and very, like, they were the killable ones when it came down to most lores and stories.
Mm-hmm.
So when it started off like that, it really actually felt more like me, like we were getting more of a more
true to fantasy,
kind of.
I think the opinion of the zeitgeist right now is that like, oh, it has a brain and can talk. Like it is now.
Yes, therefore it's a person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And having it smashed by Will Smith is like, okay, I don't know where they're going with this.
I'm just waiting for the scene where there's going to be like kind of a last ditch effort to send out a team to like fight whatever evil. And Will Smith is going to be standing there with a bunch of orcs and just look around and be like, what is this, some kind of Suicide Squad?
And then they'll all die.
Oh.
Except for Will Smith.
And then they have to fight this. It's the sorceress, and she's doing a weird belly dance trying to defeat them.
Hey, it might be good.
Actually, the Suicide Squad, there was actually another Suicide Squad, and I've always said this about DC. They kill it when it comes down to their animated flicks. When it comes down to their movies, they I don't know where it goes.
There's some Batman v Robin stuff on Netflix that's amazing.
Oh my word!
Or not Batman v Robin. Batman.
Yeah, well, actually, there is one.
Well, yeah, that one is good. There's one with Red Hood that's really good.
Yes, they have the DC Dark. I think the Dark Universe that starts up there as well. Oh my word! All of it is just it. There's just great animation. Very well told stories. Even if they're just like kind of like a tangent, they're still very well done.
Yeah.
And
did you ever hear of the other, or the Marvel cartoon Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes? It got replaced by Avengers Assemble, which became very much a kid like they were cartoons and stuff meant for like Saturday morning watchings, but Avengers Assemble like had less mature themes in it, whereas
I can't say I've heard of it.
Yeah, Avengers Earth. I recommend you watch it because it's actually like it's actually really good. It's
that's the one where like I think I know, where everything's very like all the characters very sharp and angled.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah,
Their shoulders are very pointy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I
know exactly.
Yeah.
Now that you've said that, it's like, oh yeah, of course, that show.
But it's actually quite good, and it is pretty true to comic stuff, and a lot of the storylines are straight from comics. And it went for 2 seasons, and it was amazing. But then that was right when it was 2010 to 2012, right when Disney got the rights, and they cut it and started making Avengers Assemble instead, which wasn't good.
No,
in comparison.
I gotta also say that they DC did a run. I forget what it was called. Oh man, it was the one where it's like following the Teen Titans. I think not
Teen Titans Go.
Teen Titans was a TV show.
No, it was not Teen Titans or Teen Titans Go. It was
Ben 10.
Robin. It was Robin, the clone of Superman, Martian the Manhunter's daughter.
What?
Oh, I
This is
can't.
obscure.
I know it was. Oh, I can't remember exactly. I wish I could remember or pull it up. But yeah, it's.
I know what you're talking about, and I can't think of it either.
It went for
but-
2 seasons, and it was astoundingly amazing. Like, and they're still at this like kind of like cliffhanger of season 2, and I don't think I've seen a season 3 come out yet.
Total side tangent, but speaking of comic book characters, I got a random out of the blue message from Nick the other day, and he's like, "Hey, Josh, go read Amazing Squirrel Girl number 11. Like, trust me, you'll like it." And I'm like, okay, sure. And it was an entire comic about teaching people how to count in binary.
What?
Wait,
So you read it?
Yeah, it was good.
Where did you read it?
It was good.
I used your account
Ah. Wait, when did you read this?
2 days ago, or maybe yesterday.
Oh, okay.
That's
I haven't,
funny.
I haven't been on. I'm
That's
just-
so funny, and you read it.
Yeah.
That's
That
so
is
good.
so
I figured out how to use the search function now, and then I found that Spider-Man thing. I don't know where I went last time, but anyways. So that ends our segment on something and something about props and costumes.
A little off tangent.
that was a bit
Just
of
a
a
bit.
tangent.
That's all right. We have one more segment I wanted to hit on before we
It's not even showing up that you read it.
start to wrap things up here. We have a tacos for thought, and I forgot the exact wording, but whatever. It revolves around: do you think that video games are appropriate for kids? And the reason we brought this one up is you have a young one. How old's your daughter?
Oh. I already can see that this is going to be bad.
She's this many.
Sorry, should I have prepped you?
No. She is 4 turning 5. She's
Okay.
about to go into kindergarten. But I can already see this is going to go so bad.
Bad for who?
Okay, I'm going to just say this right now. My daughter and me, we love video games. I love playing them. She loves watching me play. One of the games she likes to watch me play, Dark Souls 3. I literally have her wake me up Saturday mornings. Daddy, can I watch you play Dark Souls 3? Yes, honey. You can totally watch me
course.
play Dark Souls 3.
So I
Let's
think we
do
know
this
where-
together.
I think we know where Phil stands on our video games positive for kids.
So that's personally, I think that's cool. I think like the mature rating of Dark Souls more comes down to tone.
Yes.
And I don't know how well you can convey tone to a 4-year-old. So
Well, I was just gonna say those games are more like it's just a dark tone as opposed to like it's not a GTA.
no,
It's true.
no.
Okay, so here's the thing about video games and how I stand on this whole point with kids. Video games are actually, I feel, a positive in society, especially when it comes down to the growth of a mind of an adolescent. The content choice is also something that needs to be monitored by the parent. Now, when my daughter watches me play Dark Souls 3, she's far too young to grasp some of the greater parts, like the fact that Daddy is getting squashed by a giant turtle monster that just basically tumbled backwards, and Daddy didn't know it did that.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And so there is this aspect, and she laughs, and I still have, one of the best points for me is my daughter looking at me and going, "Ha ha, turtle killed you,"
Oh boy.
and just goes over her head. The concept of death isn't there. There's a lot of things, but when you start noticing it in kids, like the kids that have night terrors and stuff like that. For example, my wife actually, she doesn't like watching horror movies, but she's watched them before with me. Her brother, who is 5 years older than her, couldn't watch horror movies when he was 13 because it would give him night terrors. His parents literally stopped him from watching things that his siblings were allowed to watch. And I feel like in this day and age, a lot of people, they're like, "Oh, well, that's unfair. How can you treat one kid different from the rest?" But the truth is, every person is different.
Yeah, there's a lot of painting with very broad brushes out there, right?
Yes. So every kid needs to be taken in and into account for itself. My child, she's like me. She's really weird. Loves scary stuff. I love horror, and me and my sister love to watch it together. I still have a great story of me and my sister. I worked 24 hours. I got home, and then all of a sudden, my sister was at my place, and she wanted to watch a horror film. I had just got back, and I was like, I've been up for 24 hours working. I'm going to bed. An hour later, she texts me from downstairs. I'm scared. Come downstairs. And I'm like, oh. So I sat down and I watched this horror movie, straight panned. And my end result was watching this going, that was a really interesting monster. I'm going to bed now. And just went to bed. And my daughter is actually in many ways the same. She looks at a monster and goes, oh, that is so cool. Halloween, she went out with me and we were going down the street. This one guy had this costume of a clown with a giant face and the jaw dropped down and would start laughing and light up. Kids were terrified of this guy walking down the street. My daughter asked me if she could go give him a hug. And
Whoa.
that is just the way my mind works, and I can see it in my daughter in the same way. Every kid needs to be taken into account. As far as whether or not games are good for you, go look at TED Talks. There are so many things these days that actually talk about how games are actually benefiting you more so than, say, they're teaching you how to multitask, as opposed to where you have multimedia, where you're doing like you're texting, you're got Facebook, and you're watching a YouTube video all at the same time. That's not multitasking. In fact, it's actually having a hamper on your system as opposed to actually helping you. Whereas a kid who actually does a shooter, maybe the content isn't good. Maybe he should be playing that Splash game on Wii
Splatoon.
Switch. Yeah, Splatoon.
We Switch.
Wow, I'm so bad.
The Switch Wii.
My new console, we switch around.
We switch around.
The Wii Switch U.
But
Two.
that, like,
DS.
it actually does help increase their ability to concentrate. And in fact, a kid who has played an action type game is able to actually what was it? It was his sensory was better. He was able to track multiple objects.
Your ability to have that 3D perception even in the
Oh,
real
yes.
world is just skyrocket. Well, I don't know if skyrocket is the right word, but
It did increase, and this one woman who I was watching on TED, I wish I could remember it for this situation, but she actually ended up talking a lot about how they actually took an older generation that had like issues with mental health, and they put them into this situation where they made them play for, I think it was an hour, not straight. It was like incremented, but they played for a full hour, I believe, every day for 5 weeks. And in that time, they had noticed a huge result in the mental state of the person, and it was actually for the better. So really, what really in this question I would really say is it's really up to the person, the parent, to know their kid, be a part of the kid's life, and really interact and know, hey, is this scaring you? Is this something that's not for you, kind of thing? And I could just go on about crazy stories.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I really want to put this out there because it's a funny story. My daughter is crazy and weird, as I said. And one of the things that she ends up doing is she does really creepy things. One time, I put her to bed, and I was getting her. She was probably about 3 at the time, so she was speaking, and she knew that you could spell words, but she had no clue how to spell words. And she was like, "I can spell daddy," and I'm putting her to bed at this time. It's dark. It's winter. It's like, I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever, kid. Yeah, I'm sure you can. And she's like, "Daddy. D-I-E, daddy." And I was like, okay, you're going to bed right now, and I'm out of here. But she just does crazy, weird stuff. Like she loves every villain, actually, and that's the crazy part. She loves every villain that she sees, and there were a series of nights where we'd hear her laughing like the evil witch from Snow White upstairs in her room.
Oh, my goodness.
This kid is crazy, but I love her to death. She's definitely my child, that's for sure.
Yeah. There was just kind of 2 things I wanted to say on what you've been talking about there, like with elderly people. and video games. I have definitely heard too, because in the time that we're living in, most elderly people nowadays, lots of things they are suffering from are mental diseases and Alzheimer's and all that. And I've actually heard that stuff like video games helps prevent that.
Oh man, this
Just because like your brain is constantly focused on something, whereas like
the brain
I've done,
is a powerful thing.
Yeah,
man. It's crazy.
I've done a lot of services for like in my job, I do lots of services for kind of like old folks, not homes, but like communities and things like that. And a lot of the time, that's the best part of their day because they get to sit and watch you, and that's all they do. Like otherwise, they're just kind of sitting there doing nothing all day long. And it's like that's not good for your brain.
No, keeping the brain active is very, very important.
Yeah,
And
this is a whole debate we get into, but old
Yeah.
folks' homes are terrible.
yes, they are. The way they just because the main thing about like older generation is you really need to make sure that they're interactive, because if you don't, that's when they slide.
Yeah.
It is horrible, and actually it's something that we often say at my work is you can lose an arm and a leg, and that's horrible, but to lose your mind and yourself is the worst thing that will ever happen to you. And it just truly is.
Yeah. And the second thing I was going to say, kind of going back more to the question, is like your daughter's watching you play the video game. Like that's another thing with this, is that's a great bonding moment for you two.
Yes, it is.
Like that you guys get to spend that quality time together. Like to this day, I still remember being 4 years old or whatever, sitting down with a box of Lego, and I might not have even talked to my dad the whole time we're there, but he was just sitting there building with me.
Yep.
And it's just, and I am a person who does like how in different relationships, like there's those kind of different things that kind of make you tick, like whether it's the physical touch, quality time, gift giving, those kind of things. One of mine definitely is quality time. So that's a great, like I'll remember that till I die. Just all those times I got to spend with my dad, just whatever.
And another thing that one of my coworkers also said to me, and I really am kind of blessed with the fact that I have a generation that is older than me that's working there, and a generation that's younger than me that's working there. So I really get both sides of the of life from that, and it's really great. And the one guy, he kept telling me that my daughter is not going to remember the bonus that I brought home in check, in money form.
No.
But she is going to remember the time I spend with her sitting down in front of a computer and just typing away, writing a story, doing something creative. Heck, before I came here today, I was literally watching Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and I was telling her the entire story of why Gandalf the Grey is now white.
That's awesome.
And
That's so great.
That's exactly what me and my daughter will bond on. And if she later in life becomes someone other than that, I'm going to join her wherever she goes. So that's what's important.
That's actually kind of unrelated to this now. I'm really interested to see what, like, your daughter's age generation. I'm really interested to see what they're going to be like when they grow, or like when they're in high school, for instance. Because high school has very much been like, oh, you got your popular kids, and they're typically like the jocks, the pretty ones, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But now we're kind of moving into this age where people find it more acceptable to do their interests and be like, just live doing the things they like, and not being self-conscious about it. Like, people are more open about their music, their like video games, their design, their all that kind of stuff. So all the kids for this next generation are going to be raised differently in that way. And I feel it's going to be a really cool kind of thing to see in the future.
I have a feeling that it's going to be the same, but it's going to be with a twist.
Yeah.
Like, I already see that in, like, my little brother was born after the year 2000, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which to me just blows my mind that that's even a thing. Like, people can be born after 2000. But
Should have stopped. Should have
That's right.
stopped at 2000.
but yeah, like he would be, I don't know what genre of kid he is, like I guess a quote unquote cool kid, but he's also into video games and whatever, right? And I still think like we just as society love our tribes, right? So there's always going to be us versus you, and like that's just going to happen for the entirety of human history.
Yep.
But I think that the labels change, and I don't know if they label each other as like, you know, what we did back in the day. Like in high school for me, it was like the jocks and the not jocks, right? That was kind of our social groups.
I'm just waiting for the day where the jocks are like the not cool people of the school.
Oh, and sports
Yeah.
becomes like, oh, you're inferior because your mind is not strong enough. I don't know. Like, who knows? It might. But
Well, sports kids have the thing of like, if you're a sports kid, it's generally because you're probably athletic, and then being athletic generally helps with like you're maybe on average more attractive or whatever. I don't know how that whole dynamic works, but
yeah, it's actually it's really interesting. Because I've actually heard you guys talk a lot about your lives, which is really cool about this podcast. I thought personally, but for myself, when I went through high school, I went through a high school that was actually just growing, and I was considered the top from grade 8 all the way to 12. I was the oldest in the school.
oh, cool.
I was youngest in my class, but my class was the oldest in the entire school. So when I went through high school, my situation was very different. I also was very athletic, so I had that side of me, but I also was very nerdy. So I actually would end up hanging out with all the nerds as well that were classified by that. And what ended up happening was I just really didn't care. Like, I didn't let other people govern what I like to do. So even though there were those in the jock class that would tease me about being a nerd, I just didn't honestly care. I knew that there were going to be people out there that weren't going to like me for who I was, and I just had already dedicated myself to not letting those people judge how I feel. And so when I would go and hang out with the two guys who would talk about computers, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Magic, comic books, and we would literally sit in a little group. They would push themselves all the way to the end, so nobody would end up coming near them. And when I saw them, what intrigued me first was these are two guys that I've never met, so I want to know who they are. And then from there, they actually introduced me even more into a world that I already loved. And yeah, I just let yourself define who you are. When it comes down to who kids will become, allow them to become the person that they are, but at the same time make sure that they're going in a way that isn't going to be self-destructive in the end. And in truth, yeah, I even to this day, I have a very hard time when someone tells me that I'm doing something wrong because they think it's wrong. And it just instantly just makes me think, okay, you obviously have an opinion. I don't agree with it. So we're just not going to see eye to eye. And I've always worked on that road.
Amen.
Sage wisdom from Phil.
Amen.
Part-time allies. You heard it here first.
Well, before we close out the show, AJ, did you have any opinions on our Tacos for Thought?
You know, Phil covered it all here. I think, I really think that, yeah, just like them do their thing, let them do their thing, and I think it's positive, right? I think yes, video games are positive. I think too much of it, like, you know, take things. I forget what the term I was going to say, but yeah, not too much of it. Obviously,
Yeah,
like,
everything in moderation.
Everything in moderation. That's right. Everything in moderation. If you love it, you know, go ahead, soak yourself in it.
Yeah.
Dive into that pool.
One last
Swim.
One last thing I wanted to say too was video games for me and Lego, I think too, help develop something that is called domain problem solving, which is a skill that like any of the big, like, especially computer industries moving forward are all about domain problem solving, which is the ability to, like, you know your constraints, you know the tools you're working with, you know that you need to get from point A to point B, go nuts, right? Yep. And the tools you have at your disposal are what you need to use to get there. And that is a very, very powerful skill that I don't see. It's not very prominent.
No, it's not.
And having that skill in especially today's job market is so valuable.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I've always thought that video games have helped foster that skill.
Mhm.
Thanks,
Yeah.
video games.
Yeah, thanks, video games.
Yeah, and sorry, that was one thing. I just want to kind of go off what AJ was saying about moderation. Is I definitely think it is a really good thing. It is video games for kids too. Like it's another way to get in or fill their minds with new stories and get their brains thinking in that. Though I think the biggest risk with it is the too much time, because they could start to kind of become a hermit in it. And just they don't really get that social interaction.
There's something with because with movies and TV, you're being fed the media. You have no choice about how the media is being delivered to you. But because you're able to control action in video games, it becomes a lot more personal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you do see, and I have definitely, I don't know if suffered's the right word, but have felt the effects of, as somebody who's not a great socialite, like, why would I go socialize if I can have like a good time playing the single player campaign of this great game, right? Because like it's me doing things still, and I'm getting that visual and audio feedback of like a cool story, as opposed to like feeling socially awkward hanging out with people I don't know that well, right? So yeah, I can see that being a problem.
Yeah, one of my big encouragements too is if like do LAN parties.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like even if it's just like what we've talked about with Bloodborne, even if it's a single player game, like just the fact that you're in a room playing the same game with everyone, there's so much interaction that comes with that. Local co-op.
Oh man.
Go to TI. Go watch your favorite game be played, and with hundreds of thousands of nerds in Seattle and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When I got to go to TI5, and that was one of the best experiences I've ever had. Of like a whole building of people who get me for me and are like here to enjoy this piece of culture that I wanted to enjoy. It was so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Go to cons too.
yeah.
They're like no judging, because everyone's there is interested in the same stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, sometimes going to, especially if you look at the stuff that's local, if you're lucky enough to be a person who has something that has a con that's local, go, because you will eventually find people that maybe they're even local who like the same thing that you do.
Yeah.
And it's important.
Make new friends.
Make new friends.
That's right.
That's what life's all about.
It sure is. Well, you know what, guys? I think that's a good enough place as any to end the show. We didn't have any emails this week, so if anything we've talked about has sparked any interest and you want to write in at all, you can email us at
parttimealliesmail@gmail.com.
That's right, parttimealliesmail@gmail.com.
Wait,
we love
Whoa, what was that?
it. Did you hear?
No.
Oh, it's parttimealliesmail
Oh.
@gmail.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's spelled MAIL, not as in a man.
Throwback.
You know what? I'm so glad
Episode 2
you
throwback.
pointed that out from all those other episodes because that really confused me.
But yeah,
That's where all our mail went.
yeah, we had a, I didn't expect it when the show first started. We had such a great email turnout, and then all the last few episodes we haven't got anything in. So, or we have, but like 1 or 2 emails. So please write in. We love hearing from you guys and having that conversation. So Phil, I just wanted to say thanks for giving up some of your precious time.
Oh boy.
Yeah, no problem.
There's a
And,
clap right there.
It was a pleasure, my friend.
It was an honor to be on here.
Great show. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
And that wraps up episode 10 of the Part-Time Allies Part-Time Podcast.
Double digits.
We're veterans.
And we will see you guys next week, episode 11. It's going to be a fun time. And until then, take it easy.
I love you.
Bye.